Hey Roosers, and welcome back to another video. Today's video we're going to give a small update for some small changes I made to the homemade trading card game. As you guys have known, I'm trying to keep the updates a little more consistent. That even means if we're not really getting big updates to the game every time I make a video. There are some changes that I made, not really super exciting, but hopefully we can get through them relatively quickly to not take up too much of your time and just get you guys in the loop on what's going on with the game. So, starting off, I yet again changed the card frames. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but other than that, the card types are the exact same as last video, with the 4 card types being your action cards and your sprite cards which go in your deck, your helix card that has its own deck, and your regulator card, which is now in its own zone. It's always in play. Small change here about the secondary effects on the main deck cards being the sprites and the actions. I just flipped them. Before they were upside down, now they're right side up. Beyond that, they are pretty much exactly the same. The only thing I do want to say is that the Lord cards, which is a completely out of left field new concept I introduced in the last video, I did a little bit of testing with them, and they don't exactly work perfectly, but I do want to at least try to fix those mistakes before I give up on them entirely, because they were just a small added thing I add to the game to give more continuous or constant, or rather more board state building effects to the game. But that doesn't mean that they have to be here. As I did a lot of testing, I found out that the board state really does have a lot of effects going on from the beginning to the middle and to the end of the game through various sprite effects, helix effects, and of course your regulator card effects. So it might not necessarily be needed. Okay, beyond that, this is the card frames we're going to talk about. Before, they look like this. That's what they look like in the last video. The 7 elements were Endure, Rest, Push, Command, Strike, and Focus, with a 7th element being the generic basic, put in any card, any deck element, Universal. I said in the last video I was leaning toward changing the name of Universal to Train or Learn. Spoiler, I ended up going with Train. They used to be called something different, and in the last video I kind of posed the question on whether it was cooler to have colored card frames based off of the 7 elements, or how the card frames more reflect the card type. And I just went ahead and said, why not both? And so what I've pretty much been working on since the last video was these new card frames. And these are the new card frames. So these are sprite cards. These are the main deck cards. They look like this. These are the 7 colors. And then these are action cards. So they use the exact same color palettes, but obviously the primary secondary colors of the color palette are flipped rather. So for sprite cards it's more gray and less of the color, but with the action cards it's more of the color and less gray. And what that ends up meaning is that when you open and you draw a hand full of cards, you immediately know what colors you have in your hand, as well as you immediately know what card types you have in your hand. Now, the color choices for each card type, I will admit, I'm not exactly the happiest with. It's probably not going to change since I really don't feel like doing that right now. I'm kind of happy with the way the card frames look. So probably not going to change them, but it is to note that if you guys have problems with colors, then I'm not completely opposed to changing them. Because even myself, I kind of see the it's always hard to strike a good balance between yellow, orange, and red colors, which is why a lot of card games omit orange from their color palette of their game. They'll do like 5 colors and do yellow, green, purple, blue, and red, but they won't do orange because it's so hard to strike a good balance where you can obviously tell the difference between orange and yellow and orange and red at all times. I think I did a pretty good job, but that being said, I know for some people maybe even harder for to tell the difference between like the yellow and the orange in this situation. And just for a quick comparison, this is what the frame looked like before compared to the new frame. So this is what a train card or a basic card looks like now. And yeah, so it's not a huge difference in terms of color for a lot of the other colors, but it is a big difference when I was doing playtesting with these new card backgrounds, and you draw a hand of cards, and you're like, okay, so I have 3 sprites, I have 1 action, I have 3 actions, 1 sprite, two of each. It's so much better than doing it the other two possible ways. The board has not changed. Again, not many big changes to the game. Helix cards haven't changed. No rules really came to change in the game since the last time you guys been here. But obviously, Helix cards have had a new card frame update, like the other two card types. So Helix card backgrounds, or card layout, whatever you want to call it, went from looking like this to like this. Small differences, obviously, but I think it really adds a lot more personality to the game. Again, the regulator card has not changed, other than the fact that it has a new card layout as well. I'm really happy with this new one. The two different like sides of it are really striking. One side is like really looks cold, and the other one really like hot. And I really like the way that it really turned out. It is a bit busy, but I think it's just enough so that you can see a clear difference that these are essentially two different cards smashed together, which is what they are. Obviously, stances are dead. Combat has not changed in a meaningful way. Any updates that are currently that I'm playtesting now, I'm not too sure on, so I'm not really going to mention it. The split between physical and plasma card types is pretty huge. It means sometimes, because a lot of times I was struggling with getting damage through in the previous playtests. It was so easy to mitigate damage, but now that you genuinely sometimes just don't have an answer for a card your opponent plays, it sucks sometimes, obviously, for the person who is losing because of it, but it just makes dealing damage so much easier when your opponent can. I know it sounds bad for as like a design. I know a lot of people might like this, but when your opponent can quote unquote brick in the sense that they just can't really handle what you're throwing at them, it makes it so much easier to design cards. Now every attack doesn't need to be super powerful. It doesn't have to be 6 power every attack. Attacks can consistently do 3 power swings, and your opponent might just not have an answer, and so that will get through and do damage. One last thing before we get out, or two last things, but this is the important one of the two before we get out of here. I changed the rarity system in the game. So I'll see a lot of card games now doing this thing where a card's rarity will determine how many copies you can include in your deck. And I like that, but I'm going to put my own bit of a twist onto it. So now the rarity symbol actually has a certain amount of pips. Before, the pips were simply to denote the rarity. So for in this case, 2 yellow was uncommon. Well, now the pips denote how many copies you can have of that card in your deck, with the color and the symbol inside the pips being its actual rarity. So this is a common that you can play 3 copies of. This is a special, so a starter card or a promo that you can play 2 copies of. And this, for example, is a common that you can only play 1 copy of. This is really big for just another lever to pull when designing cards. I can make a card a tweak more powerful, and I can just say you can have less copies of it. Or if I realize a card is a bit overpowered, I can just say, well, I'm going to bring it down to a couple copies less. Now, I do want to preference this by saying, or clarify this by saying that in the end, usually you're going to be able to run a certain amount of commons, and then it's going to go down the high rarity goes. So you'll probably run, say, 3 commons, 3 uncommons, and then you can run 3 copies of a common, 3 copies of an uncommon, but then probably like 2 copies of a rare and 2 copies of an epic rare or a mega rare or something like that. So it is probably going to go down in that descending order. But what this means, though, is that if a card is, say, not powerful enough despite its higher rarity, I can still maybe say, well, players can add 3 copies of it in their deck. Or if a card is really specialized despite its higher rarity, I can say you can still add multiple copies of it in your deck, because if you really are playing this, it might not be an expensive card anyway. Well, in theory, in game design theory, obviously these cards are not going to be expensive, but you get the idea that even if a card is high rarity, and it might seem like, okay, well, you want to just say that your players don't have to play as many copies, so they don't have to worry about getting as many copies. Well, because of the fact that for some cards, it's not going to be hard to get a hold of these cards anyway, you might as well, for certain cards, just let them run 3 copies, because it might be really integral to a certain strategy. I like the way it works a little bit better than just simply saying you can run 3 copies of any common, 2 copies of any uncommon, 1 copy of any rare, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's it for the really gameplay updates. Beyond that, obviously you can have a look at the evolution of the card frame throughout this series essentially. So since I restarted up the series, The cards frames has done huge works. A lot of elements you can tell have stayed the same throughout the action cards, but a lot of things have changed. Sizing, text fonts, and other things. Until now, in the final stage, I'm pretty darn happy with it. I'm probably gonna leave this until the game is finished, because I do have a lot of other stuff to work on. Card frames can consume all of my time, and am pretty happy with the way that they turned out. That being said, before we get out of here, I am on the Homemade TCG Community Discord server. It is a pretty cool place if you're looking to make your own card game. Check out what other people are making. Obviously, you don't need to be on there to really be part of the community. Any place you share your homemade TCG puts you with the community. But I've been on there, and just started posting in the homemade TCG forum page a little bit about my own TCG. So if you're looking to interact with me more directly about the card game, and or you're just interested in the community in general, it's a great place to go and check out. Hopefully, I'm going to try to diversify the amount of updates between there and in the channel. Obviously, the channel is going to get all the updates if that's all you want to come for. But say you want maybe just updates day by day on what's going on with the game, then the Discord server and my Helix Arena forum page is going to be the place for you. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video, whether it be the Godzilla card game, this card game, or I hope to see you guys in the Discord server talking about your own homemade trading card games or mine. Uh, and I hope you guys have fun doing it. Well, that's going to be all for now, but if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys go ahead and watch some of our other videos that we've made on this channel. Also, give this video a like if you thoroughly enjoyed it. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future content. And I hope to see you guys back at the Roost.